Hi there, so today I'll be taking apart this Seagate Savvio 15K.2 Serial Attached SCSI or SAS hard drive. Originally, I was thinking about trying to take apart this 8GB microdrive that I found at Akihabara, the local electronics district in Tokyo, but I really didn't have the correct type of screw bit to open this up. I just didn't have anything tiny enough to fit into that screw hole properly. So, instead of that, I'll be taking apart this SAS hard drive. So, it may look like just any ordinary 2.5-inch hard drive, but this is actually a SAS hard drive that you might find in an enterprise server. One particularly interesting part about this hard drive is that it is a 15,000 RPM hard drive, so it is super fast. Oh, by the way, the capacity of this hard drive is 73 gigabytes, so it doesn't hold a whole lot. So maybe before we take it apart, we'll take a quick look at the exterior. So, of course, on the top side, you have the label with the lot numbers and all that kind of stuff. And of interest is that in most SATA hard drives, 2.5-inch drives only need 5-volt input, but this SAS hard drive actually needs both 5-volt and 12-volt inputs. Alright, so let's take a look at the back side. Nothing really special. You have a circuit board with probably chips on the back side, and you have a connector for the SAS port. The connector looks really similar to what you would see on a SATA hard drive, but the only difference is that on a SATA drive, you'll notice that there's no connection between the data side and the power side of the connector. Alright, so let's go ahead and start taking this apart. First of all, there's a few screws on the top side, so I'll just go ahead and take those off. I don't think there's going to be anything special about that, as long as... Okay. As soon as I start unscrewing this, the whole top is starting to float up. Okay. Actually, you know what? One thing. I'm just going to check the back of the hard drive and see that there's no parts that can be screwed off before taking the top off. I guess we probably could remove the circuit board first, so maybe just go ahead and do that. And this side needs a different type of tip. Probably size is a little bit different. No, that's not going to work. Let's put a different thing. Okay, try that. Okay. So that's the right size. Kind of interested how this circuit board connects to the drive mechanism and such. If there's ribbon cables or something, I may have to put the circuit board back into place so it doesn't rip anything or such. Oh, you really can't see what I'm doing. That's not good. And here goes the final screw. And let's see how this circuit board comes off. Oh yeah, so there aren't any ribbon cables that connect to this side. Basically, you can see there are a few connectors down here and a couple of connectors up here, which correspond to the pads on the circuit board here. And where's the other one? 3 more pads on the circuit board over here. And we can see that the pads don't look really good. They kind of look corroded to me. Not a good thing. Let's take a look at this electronics board. So first I'm just going to remove this foam cover with what I'm going to guess are thermal pads. And we see a chip with a big M. That's probably a Marvell controller. So yeah, this chip over here with a big M on it, it's a Marvell chip. I really couldn't get a lot of information about it, aside from it's probably some kind of ARM processor. And this over here is a 128 megabit DRAM, so it's probably some kind of cache. 128 would be divided by 64 megabytes of cache? That seems a little bit big. Well, but that's basically the information I found about this. And finally, this chip over here is supposedly some kind of a hard drive motor controller or something. And a close look, there's a little WIM bond chip over here, so I'm just going to guess that's some kind of flash ROM or EEPROM or some kind of thing to probably hold the firmware or something in here. And just a bunch of little components like inductors and such, so they're probably something to do with the power delivery on the board itself. Alright, so we're zoomed in a little bit. I'm going to guess that these pins over here are used to drive this motor down here. This motor connects to the spindle so that the platters can actually spin. And I'm going to guess that these pins connect to the electronics inside, or actually the electronics are on the circuit board, but these are going to be connected to the heads and such so that the head and the, what was it called, the head actuator can go to the correct place and to do its thing, basically. Alright, so enough of the electronics on this side, let's look at the mechanical parts on the top of the hard drive. So let's resume taking the cover off. It's going to be kind of hard to show you how to get the screw off, and let's see. Probably just going to see my hand as I take the screws off. Probably not a whole lot. Probably not really interesting. Whoa. Oh yeah, I used the wrong bit. Change it to the right screw. Wait a minute, the size is different. Come on. Oh, there it goes. And finally, one more screw up here. Alright, so we got the 6 screws from the top off, so we should be able to take the cover off. Alright, so it doesn't seem to want to cooperate when coming off, so maybe I'm just going to have to pry it open a little bit. Yep. Or there might be another screw somewhere in there. Well, let me try, see if I can pry it open first. Just might be that the sealant is, the seal might be just keeping the cover on tightly. It's kind of hard over here. There might be another screw down here, maybe. Maybe. Alright, let me take a closer look. There's a little suspicious looking silver circular sticker here, so it might be a screw or something in there. It's going to take a quick look. I'm just going to take the label off. Ah, there it is. Alright, so I took the label off a little bit and it reveals another screw in there. Now that we know there's a screw in there, let's take that out. This might be a little hard. Nope, not too bad. Okay, get that final screw out of there. And now I hope the cover will come off. Yep, that was easy. So now we should be able to take the cover off, like so. Alright, so let's take a closer look at the inside of this hard drive. So first of all, this shiny surface obviously is the hard drive platter itself, which is mounted onto this spindle in the middle, which basically will allow this platter to spin. And on the spindle, hopefully it's floating, is the read-write heads, which are located at the tip of this little piece over here. And the head itself is connected to this actuator arm, which is controlled by this actuator in here to move the head across the platter like this so that it can read data anywhere on the disk. I really can't tell from here, but if there's multiple platters in this hard drive, there'll actually be multiple of these arms here, and they'll be stacked on top of each other like this, and they'll move in a single mechanism like that. You can see this little ribbon cable coming out of this actuator arm, which is probably connected to the heads over here. This is basically for taking the electric signal that the head reads, or whatever it wants to write, to the electronics on the circuit board over here, so that the data can be written and read from the platter. Oh, obviously the platter is the place where all the data is going to be stored in a magnetic fashion. That's the core principle how the hard drive works. And aside from that, you see this little fluffy white stuff here. That's actually an air filter, so that if there's any dust or something that gets in here, the filter will pick it up so that there won't be anything flying around inside and possibly destroying the hard drive. Because keep in mind that this hard drive actually spins at 15,000 rotations per minute. Alright, so maybe we can take a look inside here and see how this mechanism actually moves. So I'm going to try to get the screw off this cover. So hopefully we can actually look at this part of the actuator. Get those screws out. Oops. Get those screws out. Yeah, those are long screws. Here we go. And let's see if we can take it off. Ooh, it's tight. Okay. So yeah, this is the part which contains the strong magnet. You can see that as I try to pry it off, it just goes right back in like so. So this is going to be painful if I don't take this off properly. Ow. That would hurt. Alright, so I'm kind of having a hard time trying to get this piece off because of the strong magnet that's in there. So let's first try taking this piece off over here, because that seems to just come off easily. So I think you can guess from the sound of it, there's probably some desiccant in there, and this is the air filter I was talking about earlier. These are probably things to keep the air inside the hard drive in a dry and clean state. So let's keep that outside. And over here is probably the connector to the circuit board over here. So I'm just going to see if that's actually the case. Yeah, that's actually the case. This is the connector to the read and write heads over here. So yeah, these appear to be going to the read-write heads and probably to the actuator as well, in order to energize the coil that's under here to adjust where the read and write head should go. There's probably nothing really interesting in there, but might as well just open it. Okay, and let's see if we can take that off using some tweezers. And no, it's not coming off. We have to push at it. Yep. So once we push it, the piece came right off. So I guess if we can liberate this head, this whole assembly will just pop right off. Yeah, well, time for the big guns. And we'll rip that right out. Whoops. Yeah, so finally got that piece off. Alright, so now that we got the cover off, let's take a look at the actuator. So as you can see from this wire that's connected to the pins that connect to the circuit board, I think some of the wires connect up to this. Oh crap. I guess some of the connectors connect up to this coil down here, so that basically some current will go through and will get magnetized, which will act against this magnetic field coming out of these strong magnets in order to move this actuator and the head along the surface of the platter. And this allows it to align to the place where the data needs to be read from. I'm not going to go any further to take this apart because getting this magnet off was a big challenge in itself, and I really don't want to deal with getting another magnet off. So this is as far as I'm going to go for this part. So next I think I'll try going into the spindle itself and see if I can remove that so that we can take a look at the platter itself. Okay, so let's see if we can move that head without getting hurt. Yep, yeah, we can move it off this side. Can we keep it off this side? Yeah, maybe if we take this off and move that off this side. Yeah. So it's just the tension from that cable that wasn't allowing me to get the head off of the platter area. So now I think we can just go into taking the screws off of the spindle and see if we can pull that whole thing out. Alright, let's see if we can do this. This is kind of tough to get apart because the platter wants to move as I try to unscrew this. Now there it goes. There's one of them. Basically, I'm trying to counteract the rotation by jamming the spindle the other way. So for the last screw, I'm going to be trying to unscrew this screw with my left hand, which is not my main hand, and see if we can show you what exactly I've been doing. Can you really see? No, you really can't. Oops. That's okay. Okay, so after quite a bit of fighting, finally was able to get the screws off of the spindle, so now it seems like this top piece might come off. Like so. And that's probably going to liberate these platters. Yeah, bye-bye platters usefulness. So here's the actual platter where all the data sits. And I guess this was actually a single platter hard disk. Alright, so now that we've taken the platter off of the spindle, we can take a look at the spindle and the heads a little closer. So observing this from the side, if we take a look at the actuator head, you can see that there's 1 and 2 actual arms sticking out. And only one of them has a read-write head. So yeah, I think you can see the read and write head on one of the arms, while the one on the bottom doesn't have any. So basically, this seems to show that this hard drive itself has space to accommodate 2 platters, but as we saw earlier, it only had 1 in there. And to further support that point, I noticed that on the spindle there's a little ring that can be taken off. I'm going to guess that this is just a space filler for an extra spindle, an extra platter. If it was there, it would actually take up this space. So it's just a spacer from what I'm guessing. And as you can see, this is the actual spindle assembly. And you can see that it moves. I'm not sure it's supposed to move more smoothly, but yes, it moves. And I really can't tell how to further take this apart, so I'm just going to leave it as is. We could remove the arm assembly by, I'm going to guess there's another screw down here that can be removed in order to, whoops, ring's coming out. just move this actuator head assembly free. Yeah, I think we've pretty much seen all the main parts of this hard drive. And unfortunately, in the time I was playing around with this hard drive, it appears that I destroyed the read-write head. Now it seems like something's sticking up where it's not supposed to be. But on the positive side, you can kind of see that there's some coils in there that are used to create the magnetic field in order to record the data onto the platter, and also to pick up the magnetic field on the platter when it reads it. Oh, just one thing I noticed that was just kind of interesting was how there was a little locking mechanism for the head. As you can see, now this piece over here locked the actuator head so it doesn't move around anymore. Once there's enough force to push it that way, it unlocks so that the head can go back and forth. But once it's pushed that way, it looks like it parks the head like this. So yeah, I think that pretty much concludes this video. I had quite a bit of fun taking this apart, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video and might have learned a few new things as well. And if you enjoyed watching this video, I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll try to answer it to the best of my knowledge. As always, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.